Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy, as they said. I'm going to be talking today to you about our mobile initiative and some new tools that we're making available very soon specifically for mobile on Android and iOS. First, just as a basic conceptual overview of the development paths available for Scaleform, we have the Unity Engine native plugin, which allows you to use Scaleform within the Unity Engine. Then we have basically the UI SDK for existing mobile engines, integration into your own game or another engine that already exists. And then there's using Scaleform itself as a 2D or 2.5D rendering engine just by itself. I'm going to be focusing on number 2 and number 3 today. So there are some common concerns with the mobile workflow. The first one is time. How long does it take to iterate in general, and more specifically, how long does it take to get content onto a device and actually running? Another concern is, while you're demoing the content on your PC, instead of going through the whole process of getting on a device, how similar or identical is that to what you'll actually end up seeing on the final device? And a third concern is quality. Will pushing the content to a mobile device cause some kind of degradation in quality, whether it be texture compression or rendering artifacts of some sort? So the mobile workflow in Scaleform basically goes like this. You start out by authoring the content, and then you can deploy either to the device or to a player on your PC and see the content running almost immediately. As an example of running the content in the player, so here's an example that it's our 3D generator example. We have this Scaleform launcher available. It's basically a plugin for Flash Studio that allows you to launch directly in our player, like so. And you can see this content is running in real time. So that allows you to deploy directly to the player. Now, one of the advantages of Scaleform is that this player is identical in pretty much all respects, with the exception of perhaps resolution and the fact that devices have different resolutions. But this should very, very precisely represent exactly the way the content will look on the final device. Another thing I'm going to be talking about a little bit later is testing the device with the deployer, or testing on a device via the deployer, and we'll cover that in more detail in the next slide. So the Scaleform Deployer is a new feature that we will be making available very soon in the mobile SDK. It allows for easy one-time setup. It automatically configures the SDK tools once you give it the proper paths. It allows you to select your assets in a GUI environment. It allows you to set various functionality differences, such as orientation, whether or not you want to support Edge AA, which has performance implications, so it's able to be toggled, audio support via Fmod, and then on Android, it actually allows you to directly deploy straight to a device. So first, Android, the workflow is basically this. We configure and run the deployer, and then you can deploy directly to the device from the deployer. And this is what the deployer looks like. Basically, it's a GUI. It's based on Qt, and it allows you to configure, as I said, like the package name, the display name, the startup file, which you can select here, and you can select a file or multiple files and add your assets. And just as an example, this has error checking, so as you can see, if I don't fill out this field, there's this warning that it needs to be filled out correctly. And there's also checking for like the package name not being properly formed and stuff like that. Also, you can adjust the orientations that are going to be supported, as I said, Edge AA. And then on Android, the auto deploy feature, which literally I can hit play, it'll perform the build, and you can see the output right there. And that's a warning. It'll show you warnings and errors in different colors. And then if I had a device connected right now, it would basically push it directly to the device and it would start running. You'll see here in a sec. Let's see. On iOS, it's very similar. Basically, you can configure then and run the deployer. On iOS, because of the app signing requirements of Apple, it is still required to open our Xcode project, which gets set up automatically for you, and then deploy via that. But just to show you an example of the deployer in Mac mode or iOS mode, so this is basically in iOS mode. It's set up, again, startup file, orientation, Edge AA, fmod, and then simply for iOS, all you need to do is pass it the Scaleform SDK path, and then we can do a build, and it'll set everything up, generate the Xcode project, and then all we have to do is open the Xcode project and simply deploy via the Xcode project. Another new tool that we've actually already introduced in our SDK, and it's part of the mobile SDK, is our new exporter GUI. It's a bit of a facelift from the original command line version that is still available, but it has a customizable GUI. It lets you save projects. The deployer as well lets you save off different configurations for different projects. I was opening one automatically via script, but you can have multiple projects set up for the deployer as well as for the exporter. Again, allows you to save configuration profiles, and you can see the results directly in the exporter. So this is the exporter. I've already got it configured with the Swift file, and you can see it pretty much fleshes out all the command line options for our original GFX export tool, including, as Ankur referred to, the packing textures or texture atlasing, which can be enabled here, as well as for Android and iOS, specific platform targets that generates all the platform-specific textures necessary for a given platform, be it Android or iOS. I'll cover that a bit more a little bit later. So the advantages of Scaleform. We feel that it's a very rapid, iterative process to be able to go from your content to the device or to the player and back, and to iterate in a close loop. Again, we have this easy-to-use tool for setup and deployment. We have the exporter that we just covered before that allows you to, as Ankur was talking about before, export to platform-specific textures that will allow, one, to use less video memory, and two, to, again, have optimized textures that load specifically for various GPU chipsets that are used on mobile devices. We have the multi-threaded renderer, which hopefully you're familiar with by now. And things are GPU accelerated on both Android and iOS. So some of the common challenges on mobile, particularly, like Ankur already covered, transparent overdraw. Now this is a particular challenge on mobiles because they very much tend to be fill rate limited when compared to their console and computer counterparts. And so it's of the utmost importance to limit or minimize or even eliminate transparent overdraw on these mobile platforms. Another concern is the limited video memory for textures. Again, that can somewhat be mitigated on the system memory side by the platform-specific textures, but they will still take up the same amount of video memory because they need to be loaded uncompressed. However, it can help cut down on your APK or IPA size so that you can get within the requirements of the App Store for shipping an app without requiring downloading over Wi-Fi. Lifecycle management is another concern. You have to be able to properly handle backgrounding your application, handling low memory situations, and a lot of this is already taken care of by our shipping mobile player. And the final issue is power consumption, which obviously is ever the concern with faster and faster phones with more and more cores. This is something that we take care of as well for the most part with our shipping mobile player. So overcoming these challenges, as we talked about, optimize for batching, as Ankur described, limit large transparent areas as much as possible, use the exporter tool to export textures specific to each chipset. Again, one key thing that's usually application specific is implementing some sort of garbage collection functionality for the low memory warning that the operating system will provide you. And that tends to be, we have a callback for it, but it tends to be application specific in that you have to clean up specific variables and objects that you use specifically for your app. So it's important to handle those situations. And power consumption, as I said, is already taken care of for the most part by the shipping mobile player. On Android, we basically kill the renderer when you background the app and then rebuild the context on startup, but can still restore it back to its previous condition. And then on iOS, the app more or less dies anyway, and again, there's a way to rebuild the content that's taken care of by the app itself, our app, the shipping mobile player. Some shipped games using Scaleform. You'll see out in the lobby there is an iPad running the Twin Spin game. That was one of our early releases. They're using us as a 2D engine. Frontline Commando used us in a more traditional sense, where they use us as UI on mobiles. Outwitters used us in their menuing system, and then just recently you may be familiar with You Don't Know Jack, and they actually used us as 100% 2D engine to render all their content with the exception of the video, which is done in platform-specific formats. Another example that is available right now in the App Store is our Star Force Battlement example. You can see here is a screenshot from iTunes. Just search for Star Force or Autodesk or Scaleform, and you should come across it. It's free to download, and it's a good example, kind of a use case of using Scaleform for an entire game. It is a full game that you can play through. There are multiple levels, and it's a very good demonstration of what is possible with Scaleform. It's also going to be available on Android very soon in the Google Play Store for free. Another new feature that we're still working on are the native extensions, which basically are libraries that contain native code wrapped with an ActionScript API. So what this means is you've got something platform specific, and I'll get into a few examples in a second, and this is wrapped in something in C++ code. It's native, but then allows accessing that functionality from ActionScript. I said, yeah, easy access to device-specific libraries, features not available in the built-in ActionScript classes. So some examples are, for example, making the device vibrate. That is something that is specific to the OS. However, you can create a native, we will have a native extension that's created that allows you to access that functionality directly from ActionScript. Another example are the ad networks and in-app purchasing. Sometimes it may be advantageous to use ActionScript for some of the logic there, so this would allow you to do something like that as well. And then finally, the iOS Game Center. We actually already have an example that uses that in our Apple SDK, or sorry, iOS SDK. Another new feature that has just recently become available is network sockets. Basically, this allows you to do raw sockets, TCP, IP, socket connections for sending and receiving binary data. You can use this with the URL loader class to send a request to server and access the information returned. The URL loader class downloads the data from a URL as text, binary, or URL encoded variables. And then it can dispatch events such as complete, status, error, open, progress, security error, etc. And some examples of what you can use this for is, for example, in You Don't Know Jack, they have a Facebook integration layer, and it dynamically goes out and downloads, I guess, headshots, I guess you would call it, from Facebook, and puts them in the user list. So that's one example of a way that this could be used. Another example would be if you had a remote database that had malleable entities or things that may change, or something that you want to live update, that you could access directly from your game over the internet via the sockets. How long did that run? How long did it run? I don't know. It stopped.
So we didn't get a chance to do any question answers during my presentation, so if anybody has any questions, you can ask us now. All of us will be here all day, so we'll love to hear from you. If you have any questions about all the things that I talked about, getting better performance through better batching, reducing overdraw, or any concerns regarding using Scaleform on mobiles. So questions? Don't be shy. There's got to be questions. We have one here.
예, 그 클릭에 대해서 여쭈려고 하던데요. 그 기술적인 질문이 아니라 지금 클릭의 업데이트가 그 중단이 됐다고 해야 되는지, 클릭이 그 4.0.14인가요? 아무튼 그 버전에서부터 업데이트가 안 된 지 되게 오래됐거든요. 한 반년이 넘은 것 같은데, 그 뒤로 지금 개발 상황이 어떻게 되고 있는지 좀 알고 싶습니다.
I'm sorry. Can you? I just got the headphone. Can you please repeat the question?
예, 지금 클릭 업데이트가 안 이루어진 지가 한 반년이 넘었거든요. 예, 지금 그 앞으로나 지금 그 개발 상황이 어떻게 되고 있는지 좀 알고 싶습니다.
Well, we are not really actively updating Click. Most of it is just bug fixes. So yeah, we are not really adding any substantial new features to Click that I'm aware of. Most of it is just bug fixes. Do you have any specific features that you would like to see in Click?
일단 적어도 그 액션스크립트 2, 그러니까 스케일폼 3 시절에 지원했었던 그 컴포넌트들하고는 동일하게 지원이 됐으면 하고요. 일단 그 앞으로도 계속 지원이 될 거라고 생각했었기 때문에 거기에 대해서 여쭤본 겁니다.
So are you still using ActionScript 2?
사실 저는 언리얼을 사용하고 있는데 그 언리얼 쪽 스케일폼은 지금 업데이트가 안 이루어진 지가 또 꽤 됐기 때문에 아직 그 버그가 많이 있어서 액션스크립트 3는 좀 양쪽을 지금 다 사용하고 있는 상황입니다. 다 사용하고 있다기보다는 양쪽을 다 보고 있는 상황이죠.
So I think part of the issue may be in this case that the UE3 codebase, as you mentioned, is a little bit behind from what is our current full support. There have been a lot of good updates. I think the current version that UE3 is based on is 4.0.16, and we're now on 4.2.2.2. So we do plan on, and we have made available to Epic some updates, and we're basically waiting on them to push those into the main branch.
저는 그 뭐지? 지금 했던 세션하고는 약간 연관은 없는데 현재 저는 지금 스케일폼 4.1.2 버전 쓰고 있고요. 그다음에 액션 스크립트 3.0으로 지금 개발하고 있는 액션 스크립트 개발자입니다. 제가 궁금한 게 하나가 있는데 일단 그 플래시 이용해서 제가 그 UI 허드들을 만들고 있는데 디자이너 분께서 이제 제공해준 디자인 리소스 자체에 그 블렌딩 처리가 되어 있는 무비 클립들이 이게 이전 버전에 그랬는지 모르겠는데 이번 제가 그 인터그레이션 되고 나서 테스트를 해봤는데 블렌딩 처리된 무비 클립 일부가 렌더링 처리가 잘 안 되는 것 같아요. 그러니까 깨진다거나 아니면 뭐 깜빡인다거나 뭐 그런 현상이 있는데 그러니까 그 부분에 대해서 그게 이번에 발견된 이슈인지 아니면 원래 블렌딩 처리 자체를 사용을 하지 말아야 되는 건지 그 부분이 좀 궁금합니다. 혹시 만약에 그런 부분에 있어서 해결책이 있다면 좀 좋은 대안을 좀 주셨으면 하거든요.
We don't support all of the Flash blend modes. We only support a subset of them. And the ones that we do support are listed in our documentation. So like the first thing I would recommend checking is to make sure that you're using a blend mode that is supported by us. And if it is, and you're still getting a rendering artifact, then just submit a support ticket with your Flash file, and we'll be happy to take a look. Do you have anything to add?
No, that about covers that particular issue. There are, in our Flash support doc, it's a PDF that lists all functionality of Flash that we support, or the subset of which we support. And there are some blend modes that we don't support currently, but if it is one of those blend modes, then yes, please submit a support ticket, and if you have an example, we should be able to fix it rather quickly. But I believe if it is one of the blend modes we support, it's probably a new issue or a bug.
그 문서 자체는 저희가 확인을 다 한 상태고요. 거기서 지원하고 있는 그 블렌딩 모드를 사용하고 있는 중이고 상태가 이제 어떤 상황이냐면 이제 좌표 이동이 빈번하게 발생하는 경우가 그런 경우가 좀 발생하거든요. 일단 말씀해주신 것처럼 저희가 그 해당 사항을 티켓으로 한번 다시 제보하도록 하겠습니다.
Yeah, that's the way to go. And the best thing is to get a quick response is to provide us with a simple example. So if you can, give us a simple Flash file that reproduces your problem.
Right, not your specific content necessarily, but just a simple example that has, a single object that exhibits this issue with the player, preferably. And it'll get over to our rendering engineers, and they hopefully should be able to turn it around very quickly.
Yeah, you should first make sure that the issue takes place in the standalone Scaleform player, because if it only happens in your game integration, that would make it hard to debug. So, just try your content in the standalone Scaleform player, and then if the issue still happens, then just send us your content. Maybe not directly your content, but a simplified use case, and then we'll take a look. So let me just quickly ask, how many people here are still using ActionScript 2? Show of hands? Or maybe both 2 and 3 together? Looks like they're all sitting in a group over there. Okay, so the rest of you have moved on to ActionScript 3. Yes? Okay. I mean, I would like to say that one thing to be aware of, if you are using only ActionScript 2 or 3, do not load in the other virtual machine. So by default, the Scaleform player loads in both ActionScript 2 and ActionScript 3 virtual machines, which which occupy space in memory. So if you are only using ActionScript 3, make sure you are not loading in the ActionScript 2 loader. And we have ActionScript 2 and ActionScript 3 loading states. You can see that in the FX player code. So if you are only using one, then make sure you do not load in the other virtual machine.
Yeah, you can actually toggle this behavior. They're wrapped in if-defs where it's added to the loader. So if you edit GFX config in the include directory, you can disable either AS2 or AS3 by commenting out the define.
So that would save you a significant amount of memory. It's memory that is just going to waste. Other questions? We have one there.
스케일펌 모바일 쪽에 대해서 궁금한 게 있는데요. 지금 소켓 통신이 정확하게 구현이 돼 있는 부분인가요? 저희가 테스트가 가능한지 좀 궁금하고요. 그리고 또 한 가지 질문.
Yes, it is available in 4.2. So if you have a current evaluation or you're a current licensee, if you want to, you'd have to move to 4.2. I'm not 100% sure of our plans of backporting things, but if you get yourself a copy of 4.2 for whatever license level you're at, you should be able to test the functionality there.
왜 그러냐면 소켓 통신이 되지 않으면 실제로 모바일에서 게임을 개발한다는 게 불가능하다고 생각을 하거든요. 왜 그러냐면 게임 자체가 스탠드 언론으로 돌아가지 않는 이상은 모든 것들이 다 소켓 통신으로 이루어져야 되는데 그분이 되지 않으면 되지 않는다고 생각해서 질문을 드렸고요. 또 한 가지는 모바일 쪽 자체의 모바일 자체 네이티브 코드를 지원한다고 하셨잖아요. 그러니까 플래시 같은 경우는 AN으로 해서 그 네이티브 자체를 연결할 수 있는 커넥션 자체가 되는데 스펠폼 모바일 자체도 그 부분이 지원되는지 궁금하거든요.
Yeah, so the NetSocket support is available now in 4.2. And we fully understand that it's not possible to develop a mobile game unless you have some sort of network connectivity. So yeah, that's like high up on our agenda. A&E is something we are still working on. So I can't give you a timeline on when it will be released, but we fully understand that these type of things are very important to people who are making mobile games. So we are actively working on it. It should be out soon. And we're not going to be, A&E is just a framework. So we will not be providing our own extensions. We'll just have the infrastructure, so you'll be able to use third-party extensions. But yes, it's under development, should be out soon.